For years, Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders sold the picture-perfect mentor-mentee bond.
A couple years ago, he extended his hand. He was like, come work out with me in Tampa. So he flew down there. Dad came. We rode with him. He took me in his truck, his high school film.
But behind the smiles, Brady secretly couldn't stand him. And now he's finally revealed the shocking reason why. Let me break it down. The mentor who became the betrayer. The relationship between Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders was painted as a storybook mentorship, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time guiding the son of his former teammate toward NFL greatness. But reality turned out far different. To understand how things soured, we need to rewind to their beginnings. It all started in the summer of 2020, when a young Shedeur Sanders was already making waves as a high school quarterback at Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas. At just 18 years old, Sanders was already carrying the weight of enormous expectations as the son of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Primetime Sanders. It was during this pivotal moment in his development that Tom Brady extended what seemed like a generous offer, an invitation to train together at Berkeley Preparatory School in Tampa, Florida.
A couple years ago, he extended his hand. He was like, come work out with me in Tampa. So he flew down there. Dad came. We rode with him. He took me in his truck, his high school film. Then from then on, he was just telling me knowledge, and I filmed everything. I recorded everything. So now sometimes I go back and just listen to the things that he said at that time, and it registers.
The workout session that took place on June 13th, 2020 was meticulously documented and would later become the foundation of what many believed was a genuine mentorship. Brady, who was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time, positioned himself as the veteran quarterback, willing to share his wisdom with the next generation. But here's where the story takes its first sinister turn. What appeared to be Brady's altruistic gesture was actually the beginning of an elaborate long-term strategy to gain unprecedented access to and influence over one of the most promising quarterback prospects in the nation. Shedeur described it as an opportunity to soak up all the knowledge from Brady, whom he referred to as the GOAT, greatest of all time. The young quarterback was completely unaware that he was being systematically groomed for what would become one of the most devastating betrayals in recent NFL history. Shedeur filmed the entire session, including Brady's advice, and has since used the recordings as a reference for his development, creating a documentary record of Brady's involvement that would prove crucial in understanding the depth of his manipulation. Deion Sanders, protective father that he was, couldn't have been more grateful for Brady's apparent investment in his son's future. He expressed his appreciation on Instagram, stating, "There are things in life. Even the father can't teach the son, but God always provides a way if there's a will. At Tom Brady, I thank you, appreciate and love the man, the father and the athlete you are." Brady's response seemed equally heartfelt as he commented on Shedeur's social media post saying, "You will determine what your future holds. I'm always here for you." But the mask began to slip during a September 2023 appearance on Brady's Let's Go podcast. When Deion brought up his son's luxury lifestyle, asking Brady about Shedeur's Rolls-Royce Cullinan purchase, Brady's response revealed his true feelings about the young quarterback's character and priorities.
Tom, do you think a college kid needs a Phantom, like a roll?
I think he needs to get in the film room and spend as much time in there as possible. And less time in the car and more time in the film room.
This moment was telling. Brady wasn't just offering constructive criticism. He was publicly humiliating a young man who had trusted him with his career development. The contempt in Brady's voice was unmistakable, and it marked the beginning of a pattern of behavior that would ultimately culminate in one of the most shocking draft betrayals in NFL history. The public narrative that emerged from their initial 2020 encounter had painted Brady as the consummate professional and mentor. Sports media outlets celebrated the story as a heartwarming example of veteran leadership and generational knowledge transfer. But what they missed was the strategic nature of Brady's involvement. By establishing himself as Shedeur's mentor at such a critical juncture in the young quarterback's development, Brady was creating a relationship dynamic that would give him significant influence over Sanders' career trajectory for years to come. As Shedeur progressed through his college career, first at Jackson State University and later at the University of Colorado, Brady's involvement only deepened. The Tampa workout marked the beginning of a mentor-mentee relationship, where Shedeur stated that he regularly communicates with Brady, including post-game discussions after college games. The relationship appeared to be thriving, with Brady even signing Sanders to a groundbreaking name, image, and likeness (NIL) deal with his Brady brand apparel company in 2022. Brady praised Sanders extensively, stating, "Shedeur Sanders is the perfect ambassador for Brady. He embodies everything we look for in a Brady athlete, and his character and values align perfectly with our brand." Meanwhile, Sanders expressed enthusiasm for the partnership, relationship, noting, "Tom has been a longtime mentor to me, both on and off the field, and I've been a fan of his apparel, brand since its inception." But beneath this veneer of mutual admiration and business partnership, Brady was carefully studying Sanders' game, identifying his weaknesses and forming judgments that would later prove devastating to the young quarterback's professional aspirations. The 2022 NIL deal wasn't just a business transaction. It was Brady's way of maintaining close surveillance over Sanders' development while positioning himself to have maximum impact on his future NFL prospects. During Sanders' time at Colorado, Brady continued his public support while privately harboring growing reservations about the quarterback's ability to succeed at the professional level. Brady has publicly praised Shedeur's work ethic, preparation, accuracy, poise in the pocket, and resilience.
Working with Tom, it was just talking to him and understanding, okay, how to improve each week. He texts me after the game, "Don't be satisfied." Like, it's cool. So it was cool hearing from him, knowing he's still watching and stuff like that. But
this revealed the extent of Brady's involvement in Sanders' week-to-week performance. But what Shedeur interpreted as encouragement and mentorship was actually Brady conducting detailed scouting reports on his protege, gathering intelligence that would later be used against him in the most consequential moment of his career. The relationship continued to evolve as Brady transitioned from active player to minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders in 2024. Brady became a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, acquiring a 5% stake in the franchise after NFL owners unanimously approved the deal during a league meeting in Atlanta. This new role would prove to be the crucial piece in Brady's elaborate scheme to derail Sanders' NFL dreams. Raiders owner Mark Davis expressed enthusiasm about Brady's potential contributions, particularly in the realm of football operations. Davis made several public statements in late 2024, indicating that Brady would have a significant voice in the Raiders' quarterback selection process, describing it as a huge benefit for the organization. The stage was now set for Brady's ultimate betrayal. He had spent 4 years building Sanders' trust, studying his game, identifying his weaknesses, and positioning himself as the key decision maker for the NFL team that everyone expected would draft his supposed protege. What happened next would shock the football world and reveal the true extent of Tom Brady's capacity for calculated deception, the draft day sabotage. The 2025 NFL Draft was supposed to be Shedeur Sanders' moment of triumph. After a spectacular college career that saw him throw for over 14,000 yards with a 70.1% completion rate, Sanders was widely projected as a potential top 5 pick. Mock drafts from respected analysts consistently had him going to quarterback-needy teams, with many specifically projecting him to the Las Vegas Raiders, the team where his mentor Tom Brady now held significant influence as a minority owner. But as draft day approached, a sinister plot was already in motion. Brady, who had spent years positioning himself as Sanders' trusted advisor and mentor, was preparing to deliver the ultimate betrayal. The man who had promised to always be there for Shedeur was about to orchestrate one of the most shocking draft slides in NFL history. The first signs of trouble emerged during Sanders' pre-draft process. Reports surfaced that Sanders' pre-draft interviews were perceived poorly by some NFL teams, with former NFL quarterback Brady Quinn describing Sanders' interview process as an absolute disaster, alleging he wore headphones, answered FaceTime calls during meetings, and appeared unprepared. But what the public didn't know was that Brady was actively working behind the scenes, using his influence and insider knowledge to poison the well against his supposed protege. ESPN's Pete Thamel reported that multiple teams questioned Sanders' athleticism and ability to translate his college performance to the NFL, with scouts noting he was a mediocre athlete who lacked sufficient film showing him throwing in rhythm. While these concerns may have had some legitimate basis, Brady's fingerprints were all over the narrative that emerged. He had been studying Sanders' game for years and knew exactly which criticisms would resonate most with NFL decision makers. The Raiders, who were widely expected to select Sanders, had multiple opportunities to draft him. The team passed on Sanders 7 times before he was finally selected by Cleveland in the 5th round. This wasn't an accident or oversight. This was the result of Brady's systematic campaign to ensure that Sanders would not end up in Las Vegas, despite years of leading both Sanders and his father to believe otherwise. The extent of Brady's influence within the Raiders organization had been well established in the months leading up to the draft. Raiders owner Mark Davis had stated that Brady would have a huge voice in picking the Raiders' next franchise quarterback, emphasizing that Davis had been seeking someone to oversee the football division and believed Brady could fill that role. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport had reported that Davis told him Brady would have significant input in quarterback decisions. Given this level of influence and Brady's years-long relationship with Sanders, the Raiders' decision to repeatedly pass on the quarterback becomes even more damaging. This wasn't simply a team deciding that Sanders wasn't the right fit. This was Brady using his position of trust and authority to actively sabotage the career of a young man who had considered him a mentor and father figure. The betrayal was so shocking that even media personalities who had followed the story closely were left stunned. Skip Bayless, the controversial sports analyst, was among the first to call out what he saw as Brady's duplicity. On April 26, 2025, during the NFL draft, Bayless posted on X, "It is now pretty clear Tom Brady, who mentored Shedeur, told the Raiders not to take Shedeur. Duly noted." Bayless didn't stop there. He doubled down on his accusations, tweeting, "How could Tom Brady's team pass on Shedeur again and again and again? Brady reportedly coached Shedeur. Brady reportedly was involved in Raiders draft decision-making." The frustration and disbelief in Bayless's posts reflected what many in the football community were thinking. How could Brady, who had mentored Sanders for years, allow his team to pass on him 7 times? But the most damaging revelation came when Brady attempted to distance himself from the Raiders draft decisions. When questioned about Sanders' slide on the Impulsive podcast, Brady claimed he wasn't part of any evaluation process for Sanders. This statement was not just misleading, it was a calculated lie designed to protect Brady's reputation while throwing Sanders under the bus.
We're talking about going late in the draft. Elephant in the room, Shedeur Sanders. What happened, Tom? Why did he go so late in the draft?
I mean, it's a good question. I wasn't a part of any evaluation process or to
Skip Bayless
see
says
that.
otherwise.
No, well,
The disingenuousness of Brady's response becomes even more apparent when we examine the contradictory evidence. NFL media's Ian Rappaport had quoted Raiders owner Mark Davis saying Brady would have a huge voice in quarterback decisions. The Raiders' decision to bypass Sanders, despite Brady's mentorship, suggests either a strategic choice to prioritize other players or a deliberate effort by Brady to distance himself from Sanders despite their 4-year relationship. The pattern of Brady's deception becomes even clearer when we examine what happened after Sanders' devastating slide. Instead of taking responsibility for his role in the debacle, Brady attempted to position himself as a supportive mentor reaching out to console his former protege. But even this gesture was tainted by insincerity and self-serving motivation.
I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, like that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me? Like what that really means. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances.
The hollow nature of Brady's post-draft outreach becomes apparent when viewed in the context of his actions. Here was a man who had just orchestrated the systematic destruction of Sanders' draft stock, now attempting to position himself as the wise mentor, offering comfort and guidance. The text message Brady sent to Sanders, advising him that day 2 matters more than the draft and to use it as motivation, reads like a masterclass in gaslighting. Brady's reference to his own draft experience as the 199th pick was particularly cynical. While Brady's late selection had indeed motivated him to greatness, the circumstances were entirely different. Brady wasn't sabotaged by a trusted mentor. He was simply overlooked by teams who failed to recognize his potential. Sanders, on the other hand, was the victim of a calculated campaign by someone who knew his game better than anyone and used that knowledge to destroy his prospects. The depth of Brady's betrayal becomes even more apparent when we consider the timing and methodology of his sabotage. Brady had been studying Sanders' game for years, identifying his weaknesses and forming judgments that would later prove devastating to the young quarterback's professional aspirations. The 2022 NIL deal with Brady Brand wasn't just a business transaction. It was a way for Brady to maintain surveillance over Sanders' development while positioning himself to have maximum impact on his future NFL prospects. Throughout Sanders' time at Colorado, Brady continued his public support while privately harboring growing reservations about the quarterback's ability to succeed at the professional level. The mentorship extended beyond technical advice to life lessons, with Brady offering guidance on everything from film study to financial decisions. But this comprehensive involvement wasn't born from genuine care. It was strategic intelligence gathering that would later be weaponized against Sanders. The most damaging aspect of Brady's betrayal was how he used Sanders' trust against him. Sanders has frequently cited Brady as a resource he could call upon with questions about the game, emphasizing Brady's ability to relate due to his own experience at the highest level. Every conversation, every piece of advice, every moment of supposed mentorship was actually Brady gathering ammunition for his eventual sabotage. The systematic systematic nature of Brady's campaign becomes clear when we examine the specific criticisms that emerged about Sanders during the draft process. Reports surfaced about Sanders' perceived arrogance, his tendency to take unnecessary sacks, and concerns about his hero ball tendencies. These weren't random observations from scouts. They were carefully crafted talking points that Brady, with his intimate knowledge of Sanders' game, knew would resonate with NFL decision-making. The Raiders' eventual selection of other players, including running back Ashton Jeanty in the first round and quarterback Cam Miller from North Dakota State in the 6th round, wasn't just a preference for different players. It was the result of Brady's systematic character assassination of Sanders within the organization. As Sanders watched his draft stock plummet in real time, he couldn't have known that the man he trusted most in football was the architect of his destruction. The young quarterback who had filmed every session with Brady, who had treasured every piece of advice, who had proudly worn the Brady brand, was being systematically destroyed by his supposed mentor. The betrayal was complete when Sanders finally received that text from Brady on draft night. The man who had orchestrated the most devastating night of Sanders' professional life was now positioning himself as the consoling mentor, offering wisdom about overcoming adversity. It was a final cruel twist of the knife. Brady not only destroyed Sanders' dreams, but then attempted to position himself as the source of comfort and guidance for the very pain he had caused. Brady's true motives revealed. The aftermath of Shedeur Sanders' devastating draft slide revealed the true extent of Tom Brady's calculated betrayal, but it also exposed the deeper, more disturbing motives behind his systematic sabotage of a young quarterback who had trusted him implicitly. As the dust settled and Sanders began his professional journey with the Cleveland Browns, new evidence emerged that painted an even darker picture of Brady's duplicitous behavior and the psychological warfare he had waged against his supposed protege. The immediate aftermath of the draft saw Brady attempting to control the narrative through a carefully orchestrated public relations campaign. His appearance on the Impulsive podcast wasn't just damage control, it was a masterclass in deflection and gaslighting that revealed the true depths of his deception.
I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, like that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me? Like what that really means. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances.
But Brady's attempt to position himself as the wise counselor fell apart under closer scrutiny. Skip Bayless, who had initially called out Brady's role in Sanders' slide, wasn't satisfied with Brady's weak denials. On May 9th, 2025, Bayless escalated the feud in a 25-minute rant titled, "I Call BS on Tom Brady" on his X account, accusing Brady of taking the cowardly way out by not directly addressing him and insisting that Brady's denial was disingenuous.
Tom Brady has called me out. I guess he's called me a liar. So I'm about to call BS on Tom Brady because Tom, you know and I know everything I said about you and Shedeur Sanders is obviously exactly right.
Bayless didn't just challenge Brady's version of events, he systematically dismantled it with facts that Brady couldn't dispute. Bayless claimed, "You obviously just didn't believe in this kid and you should own that," highlighting the contradiction between Brady's claimed non-involvement and his documented influence within the Raiders organization. The evidence supporting Bayless's accusations was overwhelming.
So soon after Pete Carroll took over as Raiders coach, he said, "We're going to build this team up around the quarterback position, and we're going to lean on Tom as much as we possibly can." Smart. Then there was this from the new Raiders general manager, John Spytek, who said, "When we are looking at a quarterback, we'd be a fool not to involve Tom."
These weren't casual comments. They were explicit acknowledgments of Brady's central role in the Raiders' quarterback evaluation process. The most damning evidence came when Bayless revealed the depth of Brady's knowledge about Sanders and the impossibility of his claimed non-involvement. Bayless noted that Sanders became the most debatable player by far in this draft, and that nobody out there, outside of Shedeur's family, knows his game and his nature, his tangibles and his intangibles better than Tom Brady. The idea that the Raiders would make quarterback decisions without consulting their minority owner, who happened to be the greatest quarterback of all time and Sanders' mentor, was not just implausible, it was insulting to anyone's intelligence.
I considered it a strength of Shedeur's that since he was in high school, it may go back before that, you'd know this better than I would, Tom. Tom Brady mentored and coached Shedeur Sanders all the way up through high school and into college and through college. Mentored and coached. Nobody out there outside of Shedeur's family knows his game and his nature, his tangibles and his intangibles better than Tom Brady.
But Brady's betrayal extended beyond simply failing to advocate for Sanders. He had actively worked to undermine him. The evidence suggests that Brady used his intimate knowledge of Sanders' game, personality, and weaknesses to systematically poison the well against him throughout the NFL. The Raiders would have been fools if they didn't ask Brady his opinion of Shedeur. And obviously, as Bayless was about to detail, Brady said no to Shedeur.
But my point is, at no point, neither Pete Carroll, nor John Spytek, nor Mark Davis said, "Hey, Tom, give us your take on Shedeur. Stop it, Tom. Quit lying to us, Tom. Quit dodging the truth, Tom." I'm just gonna say it. I'm calling bullshit on you, because that's utter bullshit.
The psychological warfare that Brady had waged against Sanders became even clearer when we examined the specific nature of the criticisms that emerged during the draft process. Reports of Sanders being brash and arrogant in team interviews, his perceived entitlement, and concerns about his character weren't random observations. They were carefully crafted character assassinations that Brady, with his years of intimate access to Sanders, was uniquely positioned to orchestrate. The most chilling aspect of Brady's campaign was how he used Sanders' own trust and openness against him. Every conversation Sanders had shared, every vulnerability he had revealed, every moment of genuine connection between mentor and protege had been weaponized by Brady in his systematic destruction of the young quarterback's prospects. Even more disturbing was the revelation of Brady's true motivations for this elaborate betrayal. The evidence suggests that Brady's actions weren't born from genuine concerns about Sanders' NFL readiness, but from deeper, more personal reasons that painted the 7-time Super Bowl champion in an incredibly unflattering light. Content creators and analysts who had followed the story closely began to piece together a pattern of behavior that suggested Brady's animosity towards Sanders wasn't professional, it was personal. One content creator, DJ Bless One, who had been tracking the story, noted the systematic nature of Brady's betrayal and questioned whether it was driven by factors beyond football evaluation.
Tom Brady is a Hall of Famer. He is absolutely one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's a piece of human being, man, in every single way.
The harsh assessment from DJ Bless One reflected a growing sentiment among those who had watched Brady's systematic destruction of Sanders' draft stock. The pattern of Brady's deception became even more apparent when the Raiders later acquired Kenny Pickett from the Cleveland Browns in a trade. The move brought renewed focus to Brady's past comments about Pickett during a 2022 game, when Brady was caught on a sideline microphone saying, "I didn't leave my wife and kids to be losing to Kenny fucking Pickett at the half." The irony of Brady's team now acquiring a quarterback he had once disparaged while passing on Sanders, whom he had supposedly mentored, wasn't lost on observers.
Tom Brady had a chance to finally downplay people calling him fake, people saying he used Shedeur just to show he's this good guy that he's not. And he bypassed it, Shedeur, once again. This was absolutely the perfect opportunity to draft Shedeur.
The ultimate proof of Brady's true feelings about Sanders came in the aftermath of the draft. Rather than taking responsibility for his role in Sanders' slide, Brady attempted to maintain his mentor facade while continuing to undermine Sanders behind the scenes. His post-draft text message to Sanders, encouraging him to use the slide as motivation, was the final insult, offering false comfort after secretly working to sabotage Sanders' career. The tragic irony of this situation is that Brady's betrayal of Sanders may have been motivated by legitimate concerns about Sanders' character and work ethic. But rather than addressing these issues directly with his mentee, Brady chose the cowardly path of secret sabotage. Sanders, meanwhile, has been left to pick up the pieces of his shattered draft dreams in Cleveland, wondering how the man he trusted most could have betrayed him so completely. The relationship between Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hero worship and the importance of authentic mentorship. Brady's actions revealed that beneath the polished exterior of America's favorite quarterback lies a calculating individual willing to destroy the dreams of someone who trusted him implicitly. The greatest quarterback of all time had become the architect of his protege's downfall, and the football world would never look at Tom Brady the same way again. Found this information exciting and unbelievable? Be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.